Hey everyone, I'm Jack Negro and welcome to the Make Your Own Noise podcast. Before we start this episode, I just wanted to say that we have recorded this episode in Bali at the Bali Time Chamber where I'm currently staying and where I've met today's guest. The audio quality is still actually pretty good considering we were outside overlooking some mountains. You can hear roosters and wind and waterfalls in the background, but it was a great spot and we had an awesome conversation. So today's guest is Paul Campbell. Paul has over 2 decades of experience in the American dance and electronic music scene. He started out throwing parties through college and festivals around the country and then internationally. He's also a nightclub owner of 2 very renowned nightclubs in Miami, and he also has his artist management company, NU MGMT. And that is actually what we're going to be talking a lot about today, is his role with his artist management company. He had some great insights on how he manages the careers of his artists while balancing their artistic integrity. He talks a lot about how one can break through the electronic music and dance scene. We talk a lot about the power of social media. And we also talk a lot about the sacrifices one needs to make along the way to break through, and how the balance of hard work, a business mindset, talent, and consistency. He came with this great thing at the end that it is possible for anyone to break through, and it is totally your responsibility to do so. It was a very empowering conversation that I hope you get a lot out of. So yeah, thank you for tuning in and let me know your thoughts. Yeah, we're here in Bali, the Bali Time Chamber. Yeah. It's a gorgeous look out in the mountains.
Yeah, it doesn't get better than this.
No, I'm super excited to have you on. One spot I wanted to even start on was when I had the idea yesterday that we should do this, was when you and I were chatting and we were talking about your artist management company and your artists. And the big thing we talked about earlier was the thing with your artists, the managing their careers versus their artistic integrity. Mm-hmm. And that's such a complex issue, but I thought the way you worded it was great.
Yeah.
So I guess my starting question would be, with the artists on your management company, how do you go about balancing their careers with the fact that they are artists and musicians?
So I think it's really important for an artist to get their creativity out there. I think that's kind of what all the best music or art or, movies, film, everything, any creative outlet, is when somebody's truly being able to be creative and they can connect with a large audience with their just creativity. And I think it should be the goal for a team to be able to develop that and allow that creative flow to exist. And then I think on the other side, there's just sometimes where the creativity isn't just breaking through.
Yeah.
And the creativity is not leading to shows or bookings or songs with a bunch of streams and everything. And then I think at some point, if you ever get to that point with an artist, I think you guys have to sit down and have an honest question, and everybody has to just look at the goals, because I do believe that, if you talk to some people that aren't in the business and they're just in music and they love music, they'd be like, hey, what do you think about music? Or like, hey, why don't you ever do that as a career? They're like, no, I'm fine. I'll just play music for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's the love and the passion for music. But when you put that business behind that word, and it's music business, I do believe that it comes with different level of everything, expectations, execution, and everything. And I think if it's not working and it's not generating income and it's not leading to shows and growth, then I think it's important at that time to have an honest conversation, and maybe there is some give and take happening.
Yep.
And in that give and take, it doesn't have to be that you sell yourself out, and that's definitely not what I'm saying. But I do believe that there's a point where there's a give and a take and an exchange, and it could be a little bit more about your sound. It could be a little bit about your, what you're producing, what you're playing when you're out. It could be the way that you're communicating with your fans on social media.
Yeah.
It depends, but it might take a little bit of maneuvering in order for what you're delivering to stick to a bigger audience, if that's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And out of the artists you've managed, or I mean, you've had a huge background in putting on shows and owning clubs.
Yeah.
Out of the artists that you've seen that have broke through, have many ever come from that really organic, that just did what they want, but it was just so good that it just blew up anyway? Or would you say a fair majority of the people that are doing really well do have big teams behind them, and that is a big reason for their success?
I wouldn't say that the teams definitely help the whole machine to make everything stick, but I think, let me think. I could say, like, all right, so just in general, in the music, you have somebody like, let's say John Summit, right? And he's a huge electronic music artist. And really and truthfully, let's say in the last 2 to 3 years, he's just had an insane moment. And everybody that kind of knows about John Summit kind of knows John Summit from those last 3 years.
He was your friend, right? That through COVID did the song with Zed then?
No. That was a craze. Yeah, who had that huge moment. Yeah, with that song. But John Summit, Charlie, but his artist name is at Craze. John Summit, he had this whole career. Everybody knows him for the last 3 years. But the reality is, his project's been around for 7-8 years.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes the industry is not necessarily looking at a brand new artist. They're just looking at the final form of an artist.
Yeah.
And that artist probably even know they're in their final form, but somewhere in the path, just some magic starts to click, and something that they're doing starts to react. And, you know, I don't want to break down his whole thing because there's probably so many things that led him to where he's at, but he was just really killing it on a platform, on Twitter, on X, whatever. He just had like this way of communicating with his audience, being very real, very raw. And I saw a lot of that momentum of him just connecting with his fans in a real way. He didn't really sugarcoat shit, and he wasn't really scared to say certain things. And I think people would be like, "Oh, that's a real guy.
Yeah.
I really like what he's doing." So I don't know that he pivoted or not, but what I do know is that he had a 10-year career-ish, or right around 10 years, and everybody fell in love with him over the last 3 years. So I think it's a matter of being consistent, not throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
And if you have to pivot, and I don't know that he did, but if you have to pivot, be willing and open to pivot.
A few things you just said were in the podcast I just recorded before, and we were talking about pivoting and consistent effort. Mm-hmm. And you said something that I think was gold then about when someone breaks through, you're seeing their final form, or a lot of people don't know the backgrounds of these artists and how long they've been toiling for. Mm-hmm. And there'd be so many amazing artists and musicians and artists out there, producers, that were on the right trajectory and just didn't sustain the consistency or the motivation to get to that next exponential growth.
For sure.
And I'm sure you see that probably all the time. Yeah,
you know, they have that meme where the guy's like digging, and just on the other side of his dig is like the gold, but he turns back.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is hard, man. This industry is hard. There's not as many spaces in the industry as people think. There's, I don't know, 25, 30 great promoters in the USA.
Yeah.
There's a couple, you know, that does X amount of shows with X amount of artists can be on each show with X amount of labels, putting out X amount of music every Friday.
Yeah.
It's not really, you know, a space that everybody's going to get on board. So, you know, at some point, you know, you have to have that drive. You have to have that diehard commitment. You got to weather the storm. And I've seen people just stick to it and break through. I've seen people have their moment, lose it, and break through. And I've people, you know, every single scenario that you can see, that you could think of has happened, and you see it all the time. And I just think that, you know, for the people that are like, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to give up, there's a space for them in the music industry.
I love that.
And there might not always be the space to be a touring DJ at, you know, the most sought after music festivals and that type of career. But you guys, there's engineering, there's production, and being a studio producer. There's ghost production, creating the business on that. There's so many different spaces in the dance music scene where you can have a career. There's guys who, I know that play at a really cool club,
Yeah.
1 or 2 nights a week. And that's
Yeah.
it. That's their whole life. They get $5,000, $2,000, $3,000 show. You get $2,000, let's say on the low end, $2,000 twice a week. That's $4,000, $16,000 a month.
How long of a set would $2,000 be at the low end?
At the low end, I mean, you're probably talking about like a 2-hour set, just setting up the night for the headliner, but you've mastered it. You know the room, you know the audience, you know how to deliver the night in a way that if you got in there at 10 o'clock, you created a vibe, and you're not banging it out and playing real hard, but you're letting everybody get in there and start drinking and buying their drinks and slowly turning up, that when you hand it over to the headliner that everybody paid to see, that they could just do their thing, top of the night, peak of the night. And there's an art in that. And not everybody has to be the touring DJ to do that. I mean, I don't want to go as far as saying you could go play birthday parties and bar mitzvahs and stuff like that, but hey, a right bar mitzvah might pay you the bag, and altar and quinces and sweet 16s and everything like that. So I don't think like everybody should just look at the dance music space and electronic music and just say, hey, if I don't make it playing the EDCs and the Tomorrowlands of the world, I didn't make it.
Yeah.
Because there's limited spots, but there's a billion ways to make money off of being a DJ producer.
And you as a nightclub owner as well, I'm sure you've got a list or a roster of fantastic DJs that are those people that you can call them. They'll be there for that 10 p.m. slot. They'll be reliable. They'll be consistent, and they'll do that job great. Yeah. And it's your relationship with them that's giving them opportunities. Yeah,
definitely. And I'm a partner in a club in Miami called Club Space, and our residents are elite. Yeah. Our residents can play with the best of them.
Yeah.
And some of them are really starting to grow outside of the ecosystem of space. Some of them are playing globally now and everything. One of the residents there is an artist that I manage, Malone. Yeah. And he's definitely gone global. He's playing in Europe, he's playing in South America. And being a resident in a space has so much respect and holds so much value to his name that we're there and we will play, and he'll play that night, and he'll play before a big DJ, and some nights he'll play different time slots throughout the night. He might close, he might open, and then there's just so many amazing guys. Miss Mata, she's a female Asian DJ producer. She's she could play better than everybody, and she could just throw down. Thunder Pony, bunch of people. There's a whole army of them that are just really good. So we're kind of, because we run such long hours at the venue, that your resident might not just be playing the opening slot.
Yeah.
You might have an opening slot, then the slot before the artist, then the slot after the artist, and then a 5 p.m. slot.
Yeah.
Because we're going the whole time. So, but just like in another venue that I have in Saline, we have a core team, and it's just a couple people. And if we ever feel that somebody is starting to make some waves in the market locally and everything like that, we would definitely give an opportunity for that person to shine and have a night. And I've seen that a million times, where all somebody needed was a little bit of attention, and that attention that they got from maybe a handout booking, let's call it, led to the exposure they need to really jumpstart their situation.
Yeah, and even motivation in themselves. It's that validation that they are getting things back from the industry for the work they're putting into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's so much about playing the game, and sometimes as a local, you kind of get screwed over a little bit. You might have to play some slots you don't want to play and everything, but I think if you take that opportunity and really lean all into it, just having that content that you could post the next day on social media, you kind of play that machine and you play that game of social media. And if it looks like you're playing in front of people, and you make a nice live clip or edited video and you show it, it's it's a good way to kind of hack the algorithm to make people think you are bigger than you are,
Yep.
and everybody's going to jump on a winning scenario. So
Yep.
I think it's important for everybody to not look at it and put their head down, but look at it and be like, wow, there's a fucking really good opportunity here.
Yep. Actually, the social media thing, which isn't somewhere I necessarily thought we might talk about or not, but I would like to get your thoughts on it. It has so many great things, and obviously there's things we can get addicted to on it too. But trying to communicate... So in my industry, I get a lot of independent artists that come up and I talk to them about release strategies and needing to use social media.
Mm-hmm.
And they discard it as, oh, my music's so good. No, they don't say it that way. They'll say something like, doesn't matter in the end. If the music's good, that's all that matters. I'm like,
yeah.
That was my reaction.
Good luck.
What are your thoughts on the balance of... To me, it comes down to a mixture of your talent, your motivation and drive, and in most music scenes, your social media and digital footprint, so to speak.
Yeah, I have a theory, and I think people would give me a little bit of shit on this, but it's just the way that I think. I think the people that make the top tier music, top tier, coming out of the studio and it's like, hey, I might have a hit record. And they just do that, like a Calvin Harris or some sort. They don't have to do shit on social media. They genuinely are hit makers. And there's those guys. And then you have guys that make really good music. Mm-hmm. And if you make really good music, you have to do quite a bit of social media. And then you have people that really don't make good music. And they think they do, but those people have to fully 100% commit to social media. Now, I'm not going to say any names. But I know for a fact that there are touring artists right now that don't make good music that are touring. And that's fucking awesome.
Because they're driven and they've got the other side of things.
They got the other side. And I think it's really hard for somebody to just be their toughest critic and to look internally and say, hey, do I make good music, great music, or shitty music? But if you can, and things aren't really connecting, you can, if you are a good artist, producer, and you're willing to... artists in general, and you're willing to commit to social media, you can be the sole reason to catapult your own career. An artist has never... there's so much shit wrong with the industry right now, but there's that one thing, like an artist has never had a bigger opportunity to grab full control over every aspect of their career. They can tomorrow start their own label, get their own distributor with DistroKid or TuneCore, or one of the bigger companies, have music out there getting paid on their royalties, putting out their own content.
Market and collab with anyone in the world.
Yeah, you can engage. You could tweet one tweet away, one at away from anybody. You can talk to promoters. Everybody's emails are everywhere. You can find it. Mm-hmm. There's 25 different vendors for each thing that you want to do. If you want to independent playlisting, or you want somebody to help you with your TikToks, there's so much there. And I think part of it is some people don't know that it exists, and then some people are too lazy to lean into it. And or they just feel for some reason that they deserve an easier way or something like that. And then there are those people who just see all that and they're willing to do it. It's the people that have a second job until they don't have to do it anymore. It's some people that might live at their parents' house for 3 years later, so all the income that they're making from their Uber job is going into funding their career. So there's never excuse. And the fact that you could kind of create a music industry that's supposed to be based strictly off of your ability to make music, you can kind of grind it out and have similar success or equal to success to somebody who might be born gifted. That's insane.
That thing you said too about... you do have those Calvin Harrises or David Guettas that are just born gifted, max them up, they just write hits. But these other skills that you were just talking about, all those things you just listed, if you are willing to do the research and do the work, most people can learn those skills. Most of those skills are not, you don't need a natural talent. While good songwriting, anyone could somewhat learn. Great songwriting, some people just have it, some don't.
For sure, 100%. And that's why you see the same few names on so many of the biggest records, right? And the writers and the producers and the engineers and stuff like that. You know, so it's a beautiful space. There's a part of it that I really like and I enjoy, and I wish people would look at it more openly.
Yeah.
And it's more like if you just look at it more in like the grind and the consistency, and you're checking the boxes, you can have a great career, whether that's hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. You can have it by being okay musically, but you got to have everything else a whole lot.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
even if you do have almost everything with the creative, like you said, unless you're in that top tier,
Yeah.
you still need to have those other bases covered.
100%.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, 1,000%.
Yeah.
You know, so I would never undermine that. But I mean, it kind of goes off in a little tangent. But you know, in the music side, as far as like the creativity and all that is in dance music and electronic music, it's become like a one-man sport.
Yeah.
Where, hey, I'm the producer at home that makes my music. And every other genre, it's such a collaborative effort.
Mm-hmm.
In every other genre, there's so many different writers and music sessions, and somebody might come in to play the keys or the guitar or the drums, and somebody might come in and engineer it after, somebody might come in and produce it because they have a better sound with, you know, this genre, and they want to infuse that into their sound. But in dance music, there's just this view about the whole thing that somebody that's producing in their bedroom, quote unquote, is they got to record their own vocals, they got to go do this, and
mix it themselves, master themselves, like some of your artists.
Yeah. I have an artist, Nitty, and this guy is he's insane, and he could mix his music. Like, he could put a full out hit record in his room. He basically made one of his records, On My Mind, that he did with his other project, Side Piece, and Diplo. There was a huge part of that record that was initially started from just in his room, and then they took it from there, and you know, Dylan and Wes kind of came in and did their thing, and turned into like a global hit record.
Yeah.
And that was done in the room,
Yeah.
you know, with one person. But you know, he's learned to be very collaborative with other artists, and he's in a lot of studio sessions now, and he writes with all that, because I think being a producer's producer, there's always that competition of how good is your mixing, how good is your
His mixing
sound
was
design.
great. The one you showed me yesterday, the heavy guy.
Yeah. And that's exciting. So he could do it in the room, but I wish that the dance music, I think way better music would be made if the artists in dance music would be more collaborative.
Yeah.
And there wasn't that stigma of having to do it on your own.
Yep.
I think it just makes sense, right? If you're sitting with somebody who's better at writing than you, if you sit in there with a better vocalist, if you're sitting there with somebody who might touch up your production, there would be so much more massive dance music records.
Yep.
And there should be.
Yep.
Because it's a global sound, it resonates with everybody, and it shows that they could stick, but dance music is quite small in comparison to a lot of the other genres in the world. And I think a big reason that's holding it back is that collaborative effort. And yeah, so even if I was an artist that was just okay, and I had the grind, I would be collaborating, and my shit would be great.
Yep.
So there is actually no excuse.
Yes.
Is to do a full circle on that.
One final thing I wanted to talk and just ask you more about is, you know, I know you started with throwing college parties, and then it was promotions and festivals, and you have your clubs as well. With NU Music, your artist management company, you got enough on your plate. I'm sure you're a very busy person. What made you steer into that path away from, or not away from, but what made you steer into that when you clearly already have so many things you can do and are doing with your time?
Steer away from...
Not steer away from, sorry. What made you
toward...
steer towards doing artist management when you are someone that already is doing so much?
Yeah, so I was throwing events for a really long time, probably the first part of my career. And let's say from 2007 to maybe 2015. Yeah. 2015. And I just did it. We did it throughout the country. We did it globally. Did shows in Australia. It was a paint party called Dayglow, and then we later changed our name to Life in Color. Yeah. So we did that. It was pretty cool. Everybody wear white and have a big paint party, and listen to electronic music. And you know, at some point, in my opinion, the landscape of what it is to be an event producer changed, and the risk changed, and I just felt like it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same opportunity anymore, and it seemed like the promoters were the last to get thanked and the first to lose their bag. And if anything ever happened, then obviously they get the blame. And it just felt like a undervalued position, in my opinion. And, you know, you do everything right, but something happened at the door and the fire marshal comes and it's just like, you're a piece of shit. It's like, you know, like literally did everything, you know, and you lost 30 grand on the party, you know?
Yeah.
And at some point I was just like, I don't see myself doing this. And I think the climate changed. I think the economy changed. I think there seem to be less promoters, more big promoters that can push you out of the market. A lot of the smaller promoters kind of died out and did other things, and I just decided to pivot. It didn't look like a landscape that I can like guarantee a successful future in. Even though I was successful up to that point, I just felt like it shifted. And then the artist management actually just kind of seemed like a perfect transition from it, because it's so much of the same things. Like, you know, a lot of the relationships, you know, there's all different types of managers, and some guys, you know, come from being on the legal and they're just really good with like master splits and these different types of things. And then you might have a good manager that's just like very organized, and you have a manager that's just like, you know, has all the relationships and maybe can help jumpstart. I'm one of those guys.
I was going to ask, what do you think you are?
Yeah, I had a lot more relationships and dealt with everybody, because we had so many markets that we threw shows, that we had promoters in each market that we worked with, and those promoters are now the biggest promoters in our country.
Yeah.
So, you know, so the promoters who became friends over time. So I just felt like it was a natural transition. I always told myself, if I ever get back into throwing parties, it would be an event for my artists.
Yep.
So that's the goal. And we have, some of my artists have their own brand. Side Piece has their own brand. They're doing a 7,000 person event in California in November. My artist Malone has his own brand. And one of my newer artists, Amal, she's developing a brand very early in her career. So she just believes she has a very strong vision. And I think when all those grow, I'll be doing really cool events with them, with their brands.
Yeah, and kind of doing a bit of a 360 back.
Yeah. I actually can't wait. But until that point, I'm cool. I'm cool.
Yeah, thanks so much for that chat. There's absolute gold in there, and I've loved meeting you here too, and chatting all things music and life.
It's been good.
So I think there's a boxing session we can get into now.
Let's do it. That's what's next.
Thanks again. I appreciate that.
Bye.